Molly. I'm so excited to be able to talk to you and just for you to have a moment to share what God has done in your life. I love that we're doing this for Culture Convos, that we're just getting to hear people's stories and what God has done in and through you. So it's an honor to be able to sit next to you and to have this conversation with you. So before we dive into anything kind of going on in the past, I would love just for you to take a moment and share what you're doing now, what life kind of looks like for you right now.
Yeah, right now I am an intern for 20 Plus and it's the best thing ever. I love it so much, just being a part of River Valley at all is just so amazing. I get to live at the intern house, which is so fun. I'm kind of in between seasons job-wise, trying to figure out what my next step is. I'm not really babysitting anymore, but I also did just graduate from college. So yeah, just trying to figure out what my next step is, but enjoying this season.
Right,
kind of best ever.
Like a hard place, but a good place to be where God can do anything in a moment.
Seriously, and I can just pour into what I want to pour into.
That's good, yeah. So, obviously a lot has happened to get you to kind of this point where you're at in life right now. And I know that we've talked and you don't have a super religious family growing up, but I'd love to hear from you just how growing into a young adult has been and what that kind of looked like for you in your journey.
Yeah. So I feel like I always knew that there was a God, but I didn't get to meet him until I was in middle school, where I learned the importance of having a relationship with him. And then I went to college and I decided to just flip the script and say, no, I don't want to follow this anymore. I don't want to be in this relationship. I want to just see what all the hype is about partying and just going for that more lifestyle. So I got into the party scene and I got into the boy scene, and I just really hated all my choices but felt stuck because I didn't know how to be who I was. I didn't know myself, so I was just falling into what was right in front of me, and that was partying.
Yeah, it's probably hard to go back to that moment, but so that was your freshman year of college, right? Can you try to remember a little bit what that felt like, just kind of living in that world, but knowing that there may be something more for you?
Yeah, I felt honestly lied to because I felt like when I was out and I was wearing these cute outfits and I was drinking, that's what was supposed to fill me up, and that's what I was supposed to find my joy in, because it was everywhere. It was all over social media. Everyone just posted like they were having so much fun, and I would go and I would party and I would drink way too much to the point where it was unsafe, that it would just leave me empty the next day and full of guilt and full of shame. And I was just torn in this in-between of, this is what I want, but it's not what I want, but I just don't know what to do.
Yeah. So you got to this point where it's just, you're kind of at the end of your rope a little bit. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that. What was kind of the turning point for you where you just were like, this, enough is enough? What kind of happened next after that?
Yeah, the shame of all of it brought me into a very anxious and very sad place, and I had finished my freshman year and I went home and I knew that I couldn't go back. Mentally, I just could not put myself back in that position. I also knew I just wasn't strong enough to not keep on with those patterns, but I knew that I wanted to recommit to Jesus because that is where I found my joy. And of course, like God always does, he opened this door for me to go on the world race, which is a 9-month mission trip to different areas of the world. And there I was totally redeemed. God showed me that he still wanted to speak to me, and I got to see him move in ways that I didn't even think he would still move, like ways that he moved in the Bible. I got to see firsthand, and I was just blown away.
Wow, that's incredible. So going from this place of kind of darkness and loneliness, and God starting to unveil to you this new way of living. And, we've talked on top of the world race and you coming home, you got involved in this awesome organization, and something kind of crazy happened, as you're in your involvement there, and I'd love for you to share that story as well.
Yeah, so while I was in the Philippines, I got to work with Young Life, and I fell in love with it. And then I came back, and I knew I didn't want to go to my church, so I started looking for Young Life in my area. And I found Wildlife, which is like Young Life for middle schoolers.
Cute.
And I fell in love with it right away. It was like the first club that we had. I walked in, and I just felt so alive. I felt joyful, and I just felt like I had a passion and a purpose for something.
Wow.
And we went to camp, and I got to lead it, and it was insane. And I fell in love with my girls, and they were just spunky and sassy and so fun. We had the best weekend ever of just learning about Jesus. And then on our way back, me and 2 other girls were trying to cross the street to get to this restaurant. And as we were crossing the street, this car hit us. And I flew like 15 feet. I had road rash all over. I didn't know at the time, but I had broken my leg from the car hitting me. And I just flew up because I knew that they must have been hurt too. So I just ran over to them, and the ambulance came, and we went to the hospital, and they were perfectly fine by the power of God. Seriously, don't know how else, but they had a scratch in their leggings, and that was it.
Wow. Gosh. So what's wild to me about that is that, you know, you've kind of got this momentum in your life. You're like, I went on the world race, I'm devoted and loving this ministry that I'm in, and then this crazy thing kind of happens. And did you feel in a moment like, is this like a setback, or how did that make you feel when that happened?
Yeah, for the longest time, I was just so angry at God that he would let that happen. Because I felt like I was just so on fire and brought him so much glory through it all. And then he would just let me just lead these girls into traffic and be hit. I was so angry and full of shame, and I laughed it off, and I was like, oh my gosh, I got hit by a car. But like deep down, I was just so hurt and so broken and had no idea what to do.
Right. That's hard.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And what's great is that the story doesn't stop there, though.
No, praise God.
And I'd love for you to now kind of move into the part of finding River Valley in 20 plus. And I know that was kind of going on in the middle of you serving at Wildlife. And you have a funny story of walking into city campus and Pastor Ben being like, seeing your cast or something like that. And he's like, what happened to you? Like that.
I was like, oh, I got hit by a car. And he said, oh, and kept walking, because you don't know how to react when someone tells you that they got hit by a car. Like, you play it cool.
You're like, sick. No, but okay, so you started coming then to River Valley here and there, and kind of what has happened since then? You know, that was a couple years ago that I met you beginning of 2019, because I started a life group. God put college students on my heart, and it's just crazy to acknowledge that we're here today, that we're talking about this. But speak to that, you joining life groups and kind of what happened since then.
I came to River Valley so broken and just so full of shame in who I was as a person. And I had no friends because I just transferred to the U. And I was so lonely. But I joined your life group, and I was in a season where I had such bad anxiety, and right before it, I had this panic attack in the car, and I was like, I should just leave, like I'm a mess. And then I said, no, I need to make friends, like I'm so lonely. And so I went in and I met you, and I didn't say anything for maybe all of them. I don't think I did, because I was
very minimal.
I was just so shy, but also just so afraid that if I let people in, they would know that I was just a poser. Like I was trying to live my life for the Lord, but I had done all these things that just made me look fake. Like, who loves the Lord and parties, and who loves the Lord but leads his innocent children into traffic? So all that shame really silenced me to a point where I couldn't even attempt to make friends, even though I wanted it so badly.
Yeah, and so, I mean, you dove in though. Like you took that hard step even though you're feeling those things. So you started joining life groups and the internship.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's been incredible to watch you grow into this bold, incredible woman of God and communicator, and just to see with my own eyes the growth and the testimony of you stepping into that and God coming in and redeeming and healing those things. And I know something recently happened just about a week ago at a worship night at City Campus, and I'd love for you to also share what happened there.
Yeah, so at worship night, the song Have Your Way came on, and I am obsessed with that song for some reason. Like, I just really love it. And I just felt the need to just get down on my knees. And so I got down on my knees and I started weeping, like not with my own tears, but like spiritually weeping. And I could feel the tears landing in my hands as I'm like face down on the ground. It felt so uncomfortable, but in that moment, I felt like I wasn't even inside my body. Like I saw myself on the floor catching these tears, and the shame of everything that I've ever like done was completely gone in that moment. And I just felt God whisper to me, like, for his glory. Like the things that used to burden me and weigh me down were completely gone, and God is using my story, which seems absolutely insane to me, to bring glory to him and to speak to people. And yeah, it was the best feeling I've ever had.
Praise God for that he met you and healed and took that away, and it's not meant for you to carry those things. And I love in all of this too, you know, you spoke to a lot of feelings of loneliness and even feeling abandoned by God, and now seeing you in community and having the best time. And would you just speak to that a little bit too, just the community that you found?
God is just so good. I cannot handle but he's brought me the best friends that I could ever ask, and a large part of me getting this freedom is that I was able to just be open with them, and they showed me what true love is. They loved me even when I told them things that I had never told anyone before, and they looked at me and they said, "Molly, you're loved." And I said, "What? That cannot be true. You still want to be my friend after I literally just shared that? Like, how can that be?" And most importantly, they looked at me and said, "You're worthy to have God's grace and his love, and to have friends, and to have a purpose and a plan for your future." And they're the best people that God could have ever brought into my life. And I just look back on those like 2 years of complete loneliness and me crying out saying, "God, bring me friends." And now I'm here with some of my best friends ever that I've ever had. And God is just so good, so good. And I'm amazed at the detailing of his work.
Wow, that's incredible. There may be people watching, you know, that can relate to tidbits of your story, whether or not they've walked through seasons of partying or feeling lonely. And what would you say to someone who's maybe in that season, kind of Molly a couple of years ago, you know? What would you go back and say to yourself in that moment?
Well, from where I am right now, I would tell myself that God's working, because last night I was laying in bed and it had finally hit me, like all of the details that had slowly come into play, like meeting you 2 years ago, and now I'm having this interview with you. And hearing the song Have Your Way in May and knowing that it always spoke to me, and then knowing to get on my knees in that exact moment, and bringing my friends from all around the world into River Valley for me to meet, like God heard my prayers and then he answered them in abundance. So I would just encourage everyone to know that God is moving, and you're gonna have a moment where you look back and you're like, wow, it all came together, and I just had to trust that he was working even when I felt completely broken and completely alone.
God is faithful and he sees you. And I believe also like the things that you're walking in right now, and a lot of the unknowns still. It's like God is so good, but there's, a lot of things we don't know yet. God is going to provide and come through.
Yeah.
And I'm just grateful for you, Molly, that you
Yeah.
would take time and say yes to this and step into sharing. So you're the best. And
Thank
I love
you.
you, and we love you, and the best is yet to come for you.
Thank you. I'm so excited.